Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamun aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah we will continue and maybe finish, maybe not this week, but our discussion on 13th flash. So this is from the book Flashes and 13th Flash. And we will continue with the 13th indication, inshallah. And before we start the 13th indication, as usual, let's try to remember what we studied last week, or the last few weeks. What remained with you, what stayed with you, what parts you didn't enjoy, you didn't like, what parts were not that clear. Any volunteer? Ibrahim, would you? No? Okay. Come on. We studied, and let me give you some clues. Last week we studied how it is that the people of misguidance seems to be very successful, achieving well in this world. So there must be something true about what is suggested by misguidance. Otherwise, they couldn't stand on steady ground. There must be something that they are standing on, something right. And on the contrary, the path of guidance, path of belief, seems to be so shaky, maybe, or the people who says they are believers, they are not that successful. Maybe it is because there's something wrong with the guidance they receive. How is so? That was the question. After this hint, maybe some people will help me. Yeah. Who has more?
I'm not sure if I like, I mean, what I took from last week's, which might not be completely the right answer, is that sometimes like the people of misguidance don't do things basically the right way. They could be like, it could be as easy as like cheating on an exam or using ChatGPT or these like dishonest ways that may not really appear to be like evil or hurtful to other people, but it's what gets them to be in the positions that they are, that we sometimes see as like favored. Like we might say, oh, but they worked hard, but sometimes they don't do it the right way, as opposed to righteous people that would, sometimes when you do the things right way, it takes a little bit more time. Like an example would be like or sadaqah or something like that. That's I guess that was my takeaway. Might be limited.
Okay, Jazakallah. Anyone else? Nothing from Ibrahim. Okay, just checking. So you touch upon an important point there. Maybe something should be clarified, because this is like in a nutshell what we studied last week, what you said. So when we ask such questions, the misguidance having success, and on the contrary, the people of guidance not having success, the first thing comes to our mind is worldly success, and we try to find some excuses, and when we say misguidance or guidance, we usually equate it with some cultural boundaries. And the first thing comes to our mind is, I don't know, openly or mostly, let's say, atheist countries like Scandinavian countries. They seems to be pretty good in shape, versus, the Middle Eastern countries are terrible. This is usually what comes to our mind. But as we discussed last week and studied, the text more carefully, we realized this is not the distinction the author is making. Like the bad shape the Middle Eastern countries has nothing with the guidance. Nothing has nothing with the belief or the Islam. I mean, it's as simple as, if you rule country, if you leave your country to kings, dictators, that's what you get. Oh, okay, I have to.
That was a correct phrase she used. This is magic, right? With a spell, you just lift a huge man. She made him running. Yeah. So, yes. So yes. I mean, a few words then, since just to complete this phase. So the truth should prevail, falsehood should die. They should be taken at, like author is mentioning one aspect of it. It is saying that by tyranny, by tricking, by demolishing, you can really overcome someone who is trying to establish something. There was an interesting anecdote that was there. He said such people would be more inclined to be like seek fame by simply being in the opposition, because opposition is easy. Like you can, if like Ahmed is trying to build some system over here with biology and something, and I have known nothing about biology whatsoever, I can just ask a question. Are you sure? Did you do this right there? Like you put the green thing over the yellow thing. How about yellow over green? Did you try this? Like, actually, this is how I used to be the shining student in the classroom, now that I am confessing it. In middle school, when a new teacher comes to school, a few of my friends, we would just bombard the teacher with questions. We were just trying to leave an impression over the teacher that, oh, these guys are good, like, because you can ask questions, right? So there's this nature of, rather than trying to establish something, criticizing something is easy, because if done with ill intention, criticism has the notion of demolition. Like rather than trying to build something, you're attacking simply by trying to poke holes in it. But if you look from outside, the guy who's trying to poke holes seems to be smarter, like he's trying to see the empty sides of it, right? But the other guy is trying to put something together. So there's this disparity between them. Like when it comes to truth, establishing truth, you are putting effort. But demolition is easy. This is why somebody coming up with such an attitude might sound like, oh, this guy is something. But in fact, there's this disparity between the two. But truth will prevail. And this is, again, a like existential statement, in the sense that because it's talking about something that exists, like it's talking about that something is, rather than like you cannot build anything by trying to poke holes to something if you keep doing this forever. But this is why there's this nature of the disparity between the two. But in another text, not in here, author also mentions about when he applies it to our social life and the material, let's say, progress of, I don't know, Scandinavian countries and whatnot. So author is saying that if you do something right, like somebody being a denier doesn't mean that everything in their life is going to be falsehood. Like somebody might be I don't know, a good husband, a good wife, yet be a denier. Like might be agreeing in terms of their respect to the justice with another person. In this regard, they are really the person of truth. That aspect of their life is good, but in some other aspect of their life, they might be a denier. And actually, author even makes a point about this in regards to the verse, don't take disbelievers as your friends. Because he says this applies to, if we think about it in general, then you shouldn't take a non-believer as your spouse. But in Sharia, it is allowed that a male can marry a Christian female or a Jewish female. Like, how is this going to happen? You're not going to love this person yet, like not take her as a friend, yet share the same house. So he says in this regard, it's more related to do not befriend their like disbeliever attitude. That attitude is a wrong attitude. But this person might be a very good artist, might be a very, I don't know, merciful person. This aspect of it is correct. So in this regard, again, the truth prevails is becoming a factual thing out there. Yeah.
So in summary then, when the topic is about Iman, right, the belief, like as a bad translation of Iman, when the matter is Iman, think it and formulate it in your mind as a matter of Iman, not as a matter of culture, geography, political systems, etc. Right? When we say the misguidance leads, let's say, destruction, we're talking about Iman. Denial of the fact that there's an order in this universe, and there must be an orderer who has the ultimate power, who has the ultimate or absolute knowledge, will. That's the what is at stake. Denying this will lead your life to destruction, because then you will take every moment of your life as source of anxiety, that you have to achieve things yourself despite everyone else, because everyone else will be your enemy, your competition, right? And then you will necessarily lead to the destruction in your life. Okay? That's the matter. Otherwise, again, it's not, do not never take matter of Iman, the message of Quran, the message of Prophet about geography, culture, your ethnicity, etc. They are irrelevant. Okay? And we also slightly touched upon the fact that although certain things may look like a success, when you look more carefully, this seemingly success, like apparent success, may lead you to, again, destruction as well. I was just today reading that at the prestigious colleges, like the Ivy League colleges, etc., the universities, the reported numbers of students with anxiety, depression, ADHD, or similar, the disorders, there's around some schools to 20-25, some schools 30-35, some schools more. And these are the ones who register as, I need help. It's for special accommodations, yes. Right? So as whatever this success is in this, the society, in our life, and when I say society, don't take it again as US society. It's exactly the same in your country as well. Okay? Maybe it's not on the news, the newspapers, but talk to your friends, you will see the exact same thing in their sayings as well, right? I do in Turkey, for instance. I see the exact same thing. So these are the students, right, of the best universities, and the success as defined in our lives lead us to this. Okay? So sometimes apparent success is not necessarily the real success. Again, don't take it as an excuse for your lazy culture. I'm not talking about that, right? So, yeah. Anyway, I guess enough. Oh, okay, yes. So who wants to read the 13th indication? So we have 3 points. We will read the first point. Oh, please. Within the first point, there are subtitles called first way, second way. We will read them as well, up until it says the second point. It's a short read. Relatively.
13th indication. This consists of 3 points. First point. One of Satan's most cunning wiles is to deceive people with narrow minds, short views, and constricted hearts concerning the immensity of the truths of belief. He says, "It is said that a single being directs and administers within his dominicality all particles and planets and stars and all the other beings and all their states. How can a person believe in such an immense and extraordinary matter? How can it be contained in the heart? How can the mind accept it? He awakens a feeling of denial in respect of human impotence." The answer: the way to silence this vial of Satan's is God is most great. And its true answer is God is most great.
Like this is, as you can guess, the translation of Allahu Akbar.
Yes, the reason God is most great is the most frequently repeated of all the marks of Islam is to eliminate this vial. For it is through the light of God is most great that man's impotence and lack of power, weakness and lack of strength, and narrow thought see such infinitely vast truths and affirm them. It is through the strength of God is most great that man sustains those truths and situates them within the sphere of God is most great. And he says to his heart, which starts to doubt, it is self-evident that the universe is administered and directed in most orderly fashion. There are 2 ways in which this may occur. The first way, it is possible that despite its wondrous immensity, such an astonishing work comes about through wondrous art in a wondrous way. So this first way is that the universe exists through dominicality, will, and power of a single and eternally besought one, to whose existence are witnesses to the number of beings, indeed of minute particles. The second way, this is the way of unbelief and associating partners with God, which is in no way possible and is so difficult as to be impossible and in no respect reasonable. For as is proved decisively in many parts of the Risale-e-Nur, such as the 20th letter and the 22nd word, there would have to be present in all the beings in the universe, and even in every single particle, absolute divinity and all-encompassing knowledge and infinite power, so that the total order and regularity, the sensitive balance and distinction, and the perfect adorned embroideries of art to be observed in beings could come into existence. In short, if there were no immense and tremendous dominicality, which is completely appropriate and fitting, it would necessitate following a way that is in every respect unreasonable and precluded. Even Satan cannot propose fleeing from such necessary immensity and suggest accepting impossibility.
Jazakallah. Any first impressions? Close Aaron, please.
I think this question has resonated with me before in terms of like asking, oh, how is it possible that one being can do all of this stuff? And I feel like sometimes the answer that I've heard before is, of course, God is all, like it's kind of what we try to avoid with the top-down approach, where we say, oh, if God can do anything, then why not? So I guess I like how in these answers, it seems like we're kind of looking at the aspects of the world around us and seeing why that necessitates that it must be so, rather than saying, oh, there's this being out there that can do whatever you, because that opens other questions like, I don't know, can such a being carry a rock heavier than he, I don't know, like questions like that. So I don't know, I feel like I appreciate this approach because I feel like that's like an answer I hear all the time is just, yeah, God can do it. But sometimes that feels insufficient.
Jazakallah khairan. I mean, to me, it doesn't feel insufficient sometimes. It feels insufficient all the time. So the very good point you made, and the text is exactly about, you know, the what you describe, that this question is with us for believers. And it's not saying that this is a trick of Satan making unbelievers to ask it so that they will not become a believer. No, he's saying that it's a trick of Satan to make believers to question so that a doubt will the place in their heart, leading misguidance. Okay? So this question is with us all the time. Why? And one big reason, as Sister Zeren beautifully described, we have this we have this top-down approach all the time, right? The God is great, God can do anything, and trying to imagine God is trying to do anything, everything, right? We have this top-down approach. And when you have such an approach, you have to fail and you have to ask such questions. Because like what you do, you try to imagine that, okay, everything is under the control of God. So he is constantly, you know, saying, like giving orders to this and then that, and then that, and then that, and then that. While he's giving order to that part of the universe, the other part is left alone. So he has to be really quick. And we're trying to imagine such, you know, the silly things. Of course, I'm, you know, exaggerating. And one possible solution we found is that, oh, maybe, yeah, he's not doing that way. He just created the universe in a state, like in a way that it operates itself, right? And also there are some helpers called angels, maybe, right? He's just ordering them and then the angels takes care of the rest, or the things themselves takes care of the rest. He created natural laws and then laws are operating, right? We have such solutions as well, all because, again, we start from top down. Like we have this top-down approach. And when you have such an approach, you have to be silly. There's no other way. And then in the answer, the author corrects. He says, don't do that. Instead, look at the universe. See how every minute thing, every the tiny things points and proves that there must be someone with absolute power, absolute, you know, the knowledge that controlling me. When you do that, bottom up, what happens as the number of particles increase, the strength of the proof increases. So then the vastness of the universe does not become an obstacle in your belief. It becomes actually a support in your belief. Okay, so that's the difference. Like, and the question, one of my older bosses, the persons I work with, one day she asked this question so openly, like we were talking about something I don't remember, and then she said, "Oh yeah, Birkan, I'm okay with spirituality and so on, but trying to imagine a God, even for me, like she was Indian, even for me, like even if I imagine a God with multiple hands, right? Like it's not easy to believe that he's constantly doing everything and taking care of everything, like knowing all my details in my life, what I do, what I like. He wouldn't care about my, the mundane matters. Because why? Again, having a top-down approach, you start with someone. You have to imagine someone, either very, the powerful with giant muscles, or some, I don't know, the abstract, the spirit life thing. You have to imagine. And because you are imagining, what you will imagine will be limited with your capacity. So you have to be silly again. So that's my understanding in a nutshell from the text. But how about this Allahu Akbar part? Like he says, this is your solution. Keep saying it, and that's the actually one big reason the phrase Allahu Akbar is suggested to be repeated a lot in the Islamic tradition. It's like a remedy for you. What do you understand from there? Or any other comments about the text? Zarin, please. You have the microphone in front of you.
I guess I wanted to clarify maybe like an attitude of not trying to say that, let's say that I am supplicating for something, but it's like something like, I don't know, let's say I want to fly a plane, for example. Like it doesn't feel possible in my current reality that that's something that could happen for me. But I guess I'm kind of going into this top down again, but like to not think that is possible feels like I am somehow diminishing like this, like the dominicality, I suppose, of my creator. If I say, if I want to do something, but I like can't, like, I guess like even in like the Quran, the examples of like, I guess the story of Zechariah, like him supplicating for a child and then kind of being surprised that he was actually given a child because he and his wife were very old. So like, but that's not considered like this silly, like thinking that, oh, it's kind of silly to just say God can do everything. Whereas if you have Iman, that is also like a necessity. Like I should, even if I don't think I can do the plane now, it should be, or fly the plane now, it should be possible, I guess. I don't know. Like, I guess that distinction is still a bit blurry for me.
That's a very good point. I mean, if there are some others to talk about that, yeah, please go ahead. Oh, good, yeah.
So about saying Allahu Akbar when you're faced with shaitan or his doings, I think that's actually a very important thing to remember because it's not only for you, but also for shaitan. So like in this society, I affirmation. They always say like, say your affirmations in the morning, like I'm smart, I'm beautiful. Like your brain listens to what it hears and what it believes. So when you're faced with situations like that, and when you say Allahu Akbar, not only are you reminding yourself that Allah is bigger and capable of doing anything, and that you can overcome whatever you're being faced with, but it's also a repellent to shaitan, as we believe in Islam. Like shaitan will kind of give up on you and be like, okay, this person's a believer, like I can't phase them. So I think saying Allahu Akbar in every situation, like in the West, we constantly hear, I mean, now it's become more of like a word people use, like Jesus Christ, like whenever they're upset with something. It kind of stems from there. Instead of like mimicking their reactions, we can use our words and be happy about using them, saying Allahu Akbar, because not only is it benefiting us, but it's like an affirmation for us, it's protecting us, and it's our like identity. And then based on sister's comment about like, oh yeah, I want to fly a plane, but it's not in the realm of my reality, like I'm a student, whatever. Again, like it's important to put things into context. Like when you want to do something, supplication or making dua isn't enough. Like you have to put in the effort and then you make the dua, and together anything is possible. Like I can't say like, okay, I want to be president of the United States when like it's not realistic. I'm not American, like I can't, like it's not something in my realm. But for example, if I do want to fly a plane and I start taking like piloting lessons and I'm actually committed to it and I give it my best shot plus make dua, I mean, it's a possibility. You can put your mind to anything. You just have to be realistic about what you're saying. Like you can't just be like, pull something out of the clouds and be like, I want to do this. May Allah grant it for me, without putting in the effort. As they say, you can take a camel to the river, but you can't make them drink. Well, first you have to go to the river and then make your dua.
Aynen. Going back to Zerrin's point, is there anyone want to contribute about that? There's a part in the text, so I'd like to read it again, if you don't mind. For it is true, the light of God is most great, that man's impotence and lack of power, weakness and lack of strength. Again, man's impotence, lack of power, weakness and lack of strength, and narrow of thought, see such infinitely vast truths and affirm them. So text says something, but I like to highlight the specific part of it, which is the author starts with, the acknowledging that as a human being, you lack power, sight, strength, and you have narrow thought. As a human being, this is the case. And just because you become a believer, for instance, it does not change the fact that you are still lacking power and strength. You have to rely on the one who has power, the one who has strength, no matter what. So no matter what, the things in the life will seem difficult to you. To you, from your perspective, everything is so difficult, everything is so miraculous. Like it is so miraculous that I'm alive in this very moment, because while eating, that was the tiny piece of rice, I had to I don't know how to say, but it was stuck in my mouth somewhere, and it was hurting me a lot. Just a one piece of rice, right? I have to cough maybe 10 minutes. So it's so miraculous that I'm still alive, right? Every moment. So for me, everything is so hard. But when I look at the things and how they become, how they come to existence, I see that they are coming from the absolute powerful one, absolute knowledgeable one, etc. So difficulty I see versus difficulty I attribute to the source maybe should be distinguished.
In this text, author is overloading the word Allahu Akbar. Like, what does Allahu Akbar mean? So, Allahu Akbar. Inshallah. He wanted to shout Allahu Akbar, but he's doing it in his own tongue, mashallah. So, you're good. So, what does Allahu Akbar mean? Life is happening. Author gives the example from a particle to galaxies and everything. But even when seeing a cute baby, you would say, like, what made this? Who made this? This is a question that comes to mind. Today, students were taking exam. I will see some papers which I would know that the student doesn't know. Probably they took it from somewhere. Who did this, right? Like, when something is done, we ask that question, who did this? What made this? Now we are living in a life where everything is happening continuously. So there's this question, constant question of what made this, who did this? And we tend to attribute it to things themselves. Like, it will happen that Ahmed will make an experiment, and then the PI will come and say that, Ahmed, good job, right? You will have this feeling of, oh, I did this. Like, we always get this attribution. Today, I did the exam to students, final exam. After the exam, many students came and shook hands with me. Thank you, thank you. I started feeling good. I'm doing something good. So then I asked the question, who did this? Like, am I really good? Because this is a question that I'm supposed to ask, right? The feeling came in there, but if I don't stop myself and ask the question, is it really me who is doing that? So this is the time that the word Allahu Akbar needs to be put there. But it's going to be put there, but which meaning does it carry? As Brother Birkan was saying, it's not supposed to be a top-down approach, but can I really be doing this? If it is the baby, can the parents be the maker of this? Like, whatever we look at. That's why then author takes two options in there. He says there are two options. One is that all knowledgeable, all knowing, all powerful maker is creating this. He says this is a possible explanation and probably the only plausible explanation. Then he put a second one and says there's this impossible explanation, which is it happens by itself, which implies every single one of them are infinitely knowledgeable, yet they do not contradict each other, although they are infinitely powerful, infinitely all-knowing and whatnot. So it is an impossible thing. So nobody with their sanity would accept this option. The other option is the only plausible explanation, but it's still being hard to accept it at the moment because student shakes my hand and immediately attributes me with being the doer of this action. And it tastes nice. And apparently it is coming from my hand. So maybe you say, maybe the student is right. So this is why, despite going through this for years, let's say, we keep discussing this. Allah is the creator of everything, every moment, starting from the creation. But still, when the student comes and shakes the hand, I say, well, maybe I am also having some share in there. So that's why Allahu Akbar is the word that needs to be put there to remind me, as Sister was mentioning, to remind myself what I meant originally with it. But in there, what I meant originally with it is, I'm again going back to Brother Birkan in this case, it's going to come not top down. I mean, of course, God, I'm imagining an all-powerful God, therefore he does it, not like that. But as the author was mentioning, bottom up, from the existence, like either I'm going to distribute this infinite knowledge, which is required to put this together to things themselves, which would make a contradiction, or else I would say there must exist an all-powerful one, which does this. So Allahu Akbar is the term, if you like, the symbol, the motto for this understanding. And putting it in my life is so central because it's as frequently as I encounter existence, which is always, I need to keep putting this word in there so that I do not go back to my factory settings and start thinking that, oh yeah, but Ahmed is also very talented when it comes to setting up experiments. So in order not to fall this, and that's why in prayer we constantly say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. In Azan we say Allahu Akbar. And when somebody converts, we shout Allahu Akbar. Yes. So
I guess I sort of, I mean, I totally understood what you were saying. But something is kind of unclear to me and still. I guess arising from what Serene was saying earlier. I am still struggling to see the bottom-up approach to how we're getting to like the fact that there's a one creator, right? I also feel like this answer, that like the paragraph that talks about Allahu Akbar is also just like, it feels to me, right? It feels top down, like just Allahu Akbar. Like, of course he can, because he's the greatest. So like just keep reminding yourself of that and you'll be fine, right? I understand the purpose of it, right? But I would like to understand, or to better understand, what the bottom-up approach here is, because then also if we're just rejecting the second way, I also feel like the second way is a little bit like why are those the two options put forth? It feels like that's almost for the sake of the argument, like it's either one or everyone. Like why such an arbitrary option, right? I don't know if I would go there, but why couldn't it be something else, right? Like I guess I just want to understand what exactly is the bottom-up approach that is explained here, or maybe it's explained somewhere else in the book, because we have gone over the bottom-up approach, but I would just like to discuss that so I feel more certain.
Jazakallah. Perfect. Alhamdulillah. So there are two things in your question, as I see, how this is not top down, and the second, what is really this bottom up approach talking about within this context. Who wants to start? Okay, let's start with the easy one. How this is not top down. So when you read Quran, you see something very similar. The Quran is full of the phrases, the ayahs saying that God is so, he can do this, he can do that, he does like this, he does not like this, and so on. But there is also remaining of these ayahs, or the other ayahs that follows it, or some other ayahs alluded within these ayahs, explains why so, explain how so. And there's this different layers of meaning there, right? For someone already there, for someone who just needs reminder, let's say, you take the first immediate meaning of the ayah, the God is so, let's say God is the greatest, and take it as a reminder, and it works. For someone who needs more explanations, let's say, the other layers in the ayah starts kicking, and when you study them, and you understand how it is so. So the author follows the same the approach in everywhere. He usually starts with some conclusions that you can use. If you just take it as a reminder, you can use them. Or some people, they don't let's say have time, or they don't have will to go further, there's, the surface value is good for them. They benefit from it. But for others who have more, let's say, time, effort to put, he continues with explaining. Right? So the God is greatest, Allahu Akbar is the conclusion. He starts with the conclusion. But then in the rest of the text, he starts filling in. So when we say we shouldn't have top-down approach, it doesn't mean your conclusion will change. Your conclusion will be same. The conclusion will be Allahu Akbar. Conclusion will be the one who created this universe has the absolute power. Okay? That's the conclusion, and it will not change when you use the bottom-up approach. But you will not start from the conclusion, just accept it merely, and then use it in your arguments. So, for instance, there's no such, such an argument, at least to me, doesn't mean anything, right? I ask, how do you believe that the sun is such a giant thing, is created by the supernatural creator, whatever the question is, and the answer, or don't you know that the Allah is the greatest? He can do everything. It doesn't mean anything to me. Like, what do you mean with the Allah is greatest for to start with, right? So the premise of the argument is not in my language that I can relate to, how I can accept the conclusion of the argument. So when it comes to the understanding what author does, what follows, he uses this explanation bottom-up part. Is it does it make sense? Okay. Go ahead, please.
And just to show the sentence from the paragraph as well. So when he says the first way, he concludes, so this first way is that the universe exists through the unicality, will and power of a single and eternal besought one, to whose existence are witnesses to the number of beings, indeed of minute particles. Still he's saying that the existence of his proof is the particles themselves. So it's not like a top-down approach, but just look at whatever you're experiencing, everything points to this concept of Allahu Akbar.
Jazakallah. And this text is not, a text that he is explicitly and in detail studies this approach. He simply put it one sentence. He says in the number of the particles in the universe, there's this proof of his existence. Just one sentence, because for this text it's enough. But in other places he studies it in more details. But because you asked and because it is really important, I like to still study this. What is this bottom-up approach? With keep talking, and why? And maybe the third one in your question, third part. Why he says if you don't believe in one creator, you have to assume that everything in the universe is a creator. So this is also a very important question, because he says so. He says the alternative is just assuming divinity in everything. Why this is so? Why not three? Yeah, why not just three or one? Maybe or one. Okay, 5. I don't know. Three is more arbitrary than one. Okay, who wants to start with reminding us what do we mean with this bottom-up approach, or starting from the creation, existence? Who has the microphone? Oh, yeah. But if you don't mind, I apologize for that, just to keep the order. Ahmed raised his hand before you. Okay, okay.
I was going to talk more about the example that author mentioned, like when he's comparing one, and then he says that otherwise everything should have divinity. So I feel like this example, I think about it a lot, but we were talking about how when you think about how a tear is formed, like whoever does that needs to also know how, like, needs to have absolute power over the sun as well. It's the same creator. And I feel like as you start thinking about every single thing that you see around yourself more, like these are the only two options. You cannot have three. Like three is even more arbitrary because how does a small cell in a plant know how much sun it needs or how much sun, like, and how does the sun provide that exact thing to that plant? So I feel like if you start thinking this way about, at least when I think this way about anything, these are the only two options that show up to me. But even with what's what I'm struggling with is, let's say you even like you use the bottom up approach and you start going from like particles and you keep on going up all the way to how vast the universe is. I feel like like the question still, like the how still remains there for me. Like, yes, the answer is there must be an all-powerful one, but like just human curiosity, I still like you still wonder how, like because I guess that's because like just how limited our thinking is, we cannot imagine something like that because it's nothing like we know. It's beyond everything that we know. But I feel like the how still remains for me, even if I go bottom up.
Jazakallah. I know it still remain for the Ibrahim alayhi salam as well, right? He was asking, yeah, I believe that you can resurrect, but I want to see how. Show me, right? So it's not a defect, at least according to Quran. And so now you can go. Yeah.
So just going back to the bottom up approach, or rather from the point of view of existence rather than the creator. But as you mentioned in the beginning, it's important to understand that human beings, given our limited domain in our existential capacity, it's important to keep examples and understanding of things within our ability to comprehend. And when we try to surpass that, that's when most of the helplessness, or rather the inability to fathom things, creeps in. So like, as we were talking about it, I started thinking about how it would be, like, at least for me, what would be an easier, digestible example. So the example of the Titanic comes to mind. Given the context of the time that that ship was built, it was the most advanced technology available, and it was captained by the most advanced and the most capable crew. And it was called the unsinkable ship, for instance. And all it took was one very minor oversight on the part of one person or two people or whoever it was. And the unsinkable, most amazing creation of humankind at that point just sank to the bottom of the ocean. So despite every single person on that crew doing exactly what they were supposed to, despite every engineer crafting that ship to be what it was, it still wasn't enough, because one random miscalculation or something that wasn't taken into account destructed everything. So it's that's why it's important to understand that just because we feel to some degree that we have reached the plateau of our capacity, whether it be academically, physically, financially, it still doesn't give us it's very important to remind ourselves, Allahu Akbar, that Allah is the greatest and we are created by Allah, and that whatever we possess, whatever we have accomplished, is due to the blessings of Allah that we're able to do this. Yeah.
Jazakallah. Sorry for this influx of thirsty kids. Okay, let's start from there. In your example, like Titanic or anything else, when we study shouldn't mean, you take notes, open some books, write down some equations, etc. Just meaning, take it serious, like as serious as at least, I don't know what is, okay, as serious as when you make the decision of investment. Should I buy this or buy that? Should I spend my money on Bitcoin or invest more on AI companies? Right? At least as serious as that. Or if you are cooking at home, take it as serious as the way you cook. Okay? That's what it takes. When you take it serious, you realize that whatever is the matter, the subject matter, you see this a perfect, let's not use loaded words like a perfect. You see this beautiful order, precision, calculations, aesthetic, right? In everything you see. Just look at seriously, and that's what you will see. Look at the Titanic, you will see all these the calculations, very precise calculations, to the extent you will realize that they were not precise enough, that it requires even more precision to make it afloat. Right? So you look at an apple, you see the same thing, the precision. How skin covers everything else, how skin protects everything else. It's so interesting, right? Like you peel the skin, you leave it a few hours, and the color is gone, the shininess is gone, everything is gone. Just a tiny, like a very thin skin is there to protect the entire the fruit. You look at the color of the fruit, and you see how it changes from one angle to another angle, how it follows your viewpoint, how it follows the sun's directions, right? How it follows the weather conditions, etc. The color will change. You look at the leaves in a tree, you see every tree has different color. Every leaf, sorry, has a different color. And the color is not static, it's changing every time you change your position. You see such a precise calculations, such a precise relationship between you and the leaf, between leaf and the sun, between leaf and the weather, everything else in the universe. Right? You see these the interconnectedness of things. And when we say bottom up, it shouldn't be also taken as, you have to consider everything in the universe, starting from the tiniest particles to the the largest astronomical object, whatever. No, just look at anything that you have, that your mind can comprehend. If your mind only works with food, just look at your biryani and see the precision there. The meat, it's so interesting when you think about it. Like, just take it serious and think. A meat, a piece of flesh from an animal. When you cook it in a certain way, it becomes edible. When you put it in your stomach, it becomes food for your body, nourishment. right? It's so interesting when you think about it. A flesh from an animal nourishes you, or a plant. We don't have vegetarians today, but yeah. Or a plant. Look at the broccoli, right? And you see this precision. You see this, the art there. When you think about especially the relationship between you and the broccoli. So as you see all these qualities there, and as you start questioning how so, like a broccoli there, having the perfect, again, not perfect, let's not say perfect, having the required features, the properties, that it fits to your needs in your body, right? And like we see the value of this when we try to consume something that our body is not made for, right? Take something that you shouldn't eat and watch the reaction of your body. Even a tiny thing, like a smallest thing, if your body take it as the foreign object, your entire immune system will start attacking and you will have a lot of trouble. So that much precision we're talking about, right? And you see it in everything, whatever you can take seriously. Now you ask the question, how so? Because why this is, the interesting, because you see every tiny thing in this life is connected with everything else in the life. As the example of, the apple changing color as you change your viewpoint, as the location of the sun is changing, etc. Like you see all these relationships between objects, between things. So you have like what options in front of you? You either say that, okay, whatever made this apple must be also knowing about the sun, must be also knowing about my eyes, must be also knowing about the weather, must be knowing about everything, right? So that's option. And you can say that, okay, maybe it's the apple itself. When you try to attribute it to apple itself, now you attribute what? Divinity to apple. Because what you say, the apple knows about everything. For instance, when a lazy scientist says, oh, no, it's a physical law, it really means the apple knows about these physical laws. All of them, not only a few of them. All of them is known by the apple. Because you take the apple from here, put it somewhere else, you see that it operates in the same fashion. It knows everything and everywhere. That's what it means when someone says, oh, no, there's a physical law. Apple knows about these physical laws. Not only know, also somehow have power to act according to these laws. Also has power to make everything else also act according to these laws. That's what it means when you say there is a physical law. So you assume divinity in apple. You see the same thing with everything, in creation. It's same with apple, and then you think about olive. The same interconnectedness with everything else in the universe. Your husband, your wife, the same thing. Whoever made your husband, whoever made your child, must be the one who made you as well. Must be the one who made this house as well. So there is no escape because of this interconnectedness. There is no escape from attributing divinity. Divinity meaning, must be knowing everything, must be having power on everything. So he says, whoever made this must be such and such. This is what we mean with the bottom up. You look at things and you say that whoever made this must be all-knowing, all-powerful. And you say this because you see it here in front of you. Like the apple make you conclude that there must be such and such source. And then the second part, if you don't accept this, like the first alternative is so obvious, like whoever made this apple must be the one who made the sun as well, who must be the one who made the birkan as well. So you unite the source. This is so obvious. You say, okay, there must be one who created all of this. The alternative is, author says, assuming divinity in everything in this creation, and I didn't touch upon that yet.
So maybe to Natalia's credit at this point, I'll just change your question a little bit. So Natalia said, why not another third option, just either one God or everything is a God? Because when Natalia takes biology class or chemistry class, they definitely don't talk about one God, but they don't talk about infinitely many gods either. They talk about other things, like they either say natural selection. We talked about laws maybe, but there are other things that they say. So aren't there third options? Like, in other sense, are all those third options boil down to the second option that the author is mentioning in here?
I just have a super quick interjection. So I think that I was more thinking of less than many creators. I was thinking like a company. No one in a company knows everything. And there are many people and many jobs within a company, and the company runs, right? Where no one in the company, in the hierarchy, right, knows everything. So why can't, what's the wisdom behind, or how can we discard that the apple doesn't know what the apple needs to know, and then the wind knows what the wind needs to know, etc. If we can make that clear, that I'd feel better.
Jazakallah khairan. Yeah, in science, for instance, they call it the local explanations, meaning I will try to attribute something small to apple, not everything. Right? I will attribute something small to apple, and then another small thing to another thing, and then some small thing to another thing, and all together they will explain what I see. And then when we try to do that, we easily realize that we cannot do this. Like anything, like any small thing, we try to attribute to apple. So there's one example. Let me give this example. I was talking to some friends about that as well. So the birds, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but you see that the birds, when they fly, they have certain shapes, right? Sometimes they have this V shape. Sometimes it's the opposite of the V. Sometimes it's more like a ball. But they have these different shapes. When you study the motion of this flux of birds, you realize the shape they take is actually not random at all. It's quote unquote adapts to the requirement of the group of birds. For instance, if there's a prey attacking them, they would have this wheel-like shape, okay, because it protects them more. If there's something else, they will take another shape, etc. So it's not random at all. But when you realize this, there's a huge question. A tiny brain of the bird is not enough to understand the situation, come up with a plan, and then execute this plan, and distributing job to the entire, the flock, all the members, and then no one will make any mistake. The number of neurons, let me put it that way, in a bird is not enough to explain this. So what you come up with, you say, okay, I will try to give just one small thing to each bird, and together it will end up with such a formation. They say, you know what, if there's one explanation, for instance, if each bird only knows what it should do depending on what it is on his left or right, right? Every bird will look only at their left. If there's another bird, they will take such a shape. If not, they will, yeah, you got it. And they made some simulations, computer simulations. Through such a single rule, they said, voila, we solved it, because it works. You put just one rule, every bird only look at left, and then you put the simulation, you send a prey, and they really end up with the formation that we observe in reality. And just like you ask, right? They say, oh, I mean, it's like a company. Every bird only knows one thing, one small thing, just looking at the left. And you say, okay, I explained it. So what is the trick there? Like, this is like a local explanation, local to each bird, right? What is the trick there? The rule, it's not local at all. Why not right, for instance? Why not, the left corner? Well, I don't know. Because looking at the left is derived by a bigger brain, which is you, right? You analyze the entire system and say that you can somehow, formulate it with something smaller from your perspective, and then attribute it to each bird. But now you have to explain how, that before you were trying to only explain how the number of neurons in a brain of a bird, enough to explain the formation. Now you have to explain this brain of the bird will understand the formation, will understand also mathematics, so that it will dissect this formation into pieces, will also understand the idea of optimization, so that it will optimize this tiny rule. And then you have to also explain that how all these equations, optimizations, etc., done by a single bird, also replicated by all other birds as well. No single bird in this formation, for instance, come up with some other solutions. They all end up with the same optimized, the rule. So this so-called simple rule is actually the product of knowing everything. So there is no such thing as knowing just tiny thing and it will work. So when you talk about the company, for instance, there is no such thing as random people coming together without any background, any training, any education. In an isolated island, you just put them there hundreds of them, knowing nothing, and tell them, you know what, Adil, you just know something. I don't know, you pick. And then Ahmed, you pick another thing, and then Natalia, you pick another thing. Just random, tiny, the piece of information. And then you come together and then act as an efficient company. It will not work. You have to start with a global knowledge of everything. Again, some people has to study this global knowledge for centuries and then dissect it into pieces and then optimize it and then make also some management choices to distribute these tiny pieces to people, and then put in place some monitoring and auditing systems, and then execute them in an orderly fashion. So what you do actually when you distribute things and when you say that it works, you like you start with just running a company and you end up with knowing entire science of running a company. So the knowledge there even more global than what you start with. I don't know if it makes sense or not. So there is no such thing as local tiny power or knowledge in anything.
And also practically, as Nursi talks about this, and he uses particles because I guess it simplifies things. But the very same particle, and we can conclude that easily. If I put this particle in Ahmed, it becomes Ahmed. If I put it in Huda, it starts acting like a small female kid. If it is at Ahmed, it acts like a, I don't know, 25-year-old Ahmed. Ahmed's a different person than Umar and whatnot. Like every particle, wherever you put them, as if it knows everything. Like pretty much like you get this guy, you put it in Apple, works for Apple, take it from there, put it into Tesla, starts producing a car, take it from there, put it to what, like whichever company you put, it starts working there seamlessly. Like this is practically how the life is, right? Like whichever, and since we are talking about particles, just take it as deep as you go. Like take, I don't know, proton, neutron, whatever. Like a neutron, if you put this neutron in here, it produces a plant. If you put it the other side of the universe, the same neutron is going to be functioning in the body of a cow, something. This is why you say that, well, it looks like this neutron, this proton is capable of doing anything in here. Like it must be really knowing everything. This is why you would say, and so Mariam was mentioning in art, if someone is good at calligraphy and then also illumination and can also play music, like they say, oh, this guy, they have a special name for this type of people who does everything so well, like expert of everything, right? So you say that, wow, this guy is just extraordinary. But every single particle is actually doing that. Every single particle is extraordinarily capable of knowing everything, doing everything in this regard. This is why saying that they need to know if the universe was static, I could have agreed with what you said partially, but the universe is not static either. Like everything is changing, everything is in this influx, yet this particle keeps changing so many companies, which all produce different things, yet functions perfectly in all. So what would I say in this regard?
Okay, so maybe if we can summarize before we have actually like 10 minutes. How we should approach. We look at things, and first we have to understand what is there. Okay? We have to be careful in identifying what is there. Like in your example, for instance, the company. Our minds or some other people, doesn't matter, will use such examples to trick us, fool us, because we are not accustomed to ask, what am I seeing there? The company example is given. Oh, you see all these small, the pieces coming together. None of them knows anything or everything, just tiny things, and then it works. First, I have to ask what I see there in this example. What? Question. Okay. And what I see in the example of company is a huge knowledge encompassing the entire company, so big the knowledge, also knows how to distribute what needs to be done into small pieces in an orderly fashion so that it will work, right? This is what I see there actually. I see signs of management. I see signs of production. I see signs of manufacturing. I see signs of, I don't know, the information technologies. All of them are there in a company. Right? So now I see this, this quality, the huge, the knowledge. Now I have to explain, ask how. The second question is how. The first is what I see, and then how it's done, which also translate into to whom am I going to attribute this huge knowledge? Because when I look at the individuals, as you said, I don't see this huge knowledge there. So what is the conclusion then? There must be an architect of this company, right? And there is always an architect of a company beyond these individual people. I don't see this architect. Maybe the person is not working even there, but I know that there must be one. So start with a what question. What do you see? What qualities you see? And don't be fooled. Look carefully. And then ask how question. How? Which will lead you to whom I can attribute it. All these qualities. And when you realize that, one part of the scale, it's not, the equal to the other one, like all these qualities, I cannot attribute to these pieces, these individuals. Then you say there must be something else, there must be someone else beyond what I see here.
So why is this question showing up in this context? As we are now concluding, so the overall topic that we have been discussing was the seeking refuge from Satan to God. But now Satan makes this a satanic trick to say that what Allahu Akbar requires is so tremendous, so huge, that it's unlikely. This feeling is being, if you like, excited in human as a means to deny. Since it requires such a great knowledge and power, it's unlikely. Like this feeling is being triggered. Satan is like this satanic trick is out there. And right now it sounds very theological, very out there, some distant conclusion. But inshallah, next week it's going to bring us to how this is coming very close to ourselves. Because if I start accepting this trick, like if I do not live by Allahu Akbar, then I start becoming great myself, partially. Like denying the grandeur of the Creator opens up space for me. If there is no one Creator, then I am going to become one of those infinite creators. So this is where it will take us to. Like, why would I be willing to accept this other than simply it sounds unfeasible, infeasible. There's something else at stake, which my nafs has an interest in the topic as well. It's not only, oh, it's very unlikely, but also by denying this one God, I open up space to myself to claim I am here, I am strong. So this is for next week, I guess.
Jazakallah. Any concluding remarks, questions?
Is this already on? Or like,
Yeah.
Well, you didn't use this terminology, but like one thing that I was basically what I was interpreting it as when you were talking about seeing things is basically living mindfully. Because like when I eat and like when I just go through my everyday activities, what I try to do is actually like thinking about what I'm actually doing instead of just like basically being present in the moment is what I'm saying. Because then you actually see things for what they are and you see like the beauty and like the interconnectedness and everything. And I guess that's sort of like what I interpreted like your words as, even though you didn't use like the terminology of like mindfulness. That's sort of, I don't know, I just wanted to mention that. I need to turn it off.
Oh, so that's good. That's good. So, yeah, it's like exactly being conscious of what is happening around you, being aware of everything you see. I usually refrain from using certain terminologies, as you rightfully got it, because sometimes, maybe not for this example, doesn't matter, but sometimes the terminologies come loaded, right? Just because, you know, I share a truth with this terminology or ideology, it shouldn't mean that I accept it as a package. That's the reason I usually try not to use certain terminologies. But yeah, Jazakallah, that's a very good point. Like being aware, being conscious about what is going on there. And again, just take it serious. As serious as, you know, how much money you have in your pocket. That much seriousness is enough to realize that everything in creation, everything in your life is so connected to each other, interconnected. You remove one part, everything starts falling down. Just realize this. Okay, should we? Yeah, we should end here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.